that's what the whole thing of Bhagavad Gita is, that, you change yourself. It's a, self-realization is a very internal journey.
Right.
It has nothing to do with outside world. But, outside people, they may, like, as an example, they may look at some self-realized person and say, oh, if he can do it, I can do it too. So that's a different way he will change. But they're self-realized people जाके थोड़ी बोलते हैं कि भाई, सभी बन जाओ self-realized. अभी आएगा कि how those people function. They actually go among the market people and they sit with them and they do the job, slowly changing their mind and, teaching them. Not suddenly going and telling everybody, hey, so those things are there. So I think that it will get clarified. Don't worry about caste thing too much right now, because the detail is coming further. Okay. Yeah, Vandana, you have something?
I'm Vivek.
Oh, hello, Vivek. Hari Om.
Yeah, how are you?
Fine.
I have got one very practical question or practical issue.
Mm-hmm.
As this caste system is going on, or what is Varna system is going on,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that Indian society has suffered lot from this caste system, which created touchable, untouchable, Brahmin, Shudra, etc.
Mm-hmm.
What happened practically to whom we consider non-touchable, untouchable, they were left behind, and other religion came and they tried to convince them, you are nobody in this Indian society. Why don't you come in our religion?
Yeah, can I just interrupt you for a second, Vivek ji?
Conversion you can find only from Indian society into another religion, but you have rare example who adopt Indian culture. So practically all this theory is okay, but practically Indian society has suffered a lot from misunderstanding maybe, but this caste system.
So I think that this argument can go on for long. So what we can do is we have kept half an hour towards the end of the class, because we have a certain thing that we finish.
Yeah.
What you're saying is true.
Your flow.
Yeah.
Only I have put my issue with you. At later stage, we can issue.
Yes, we can definitely address that. There's no problem. And to me, if you go back, I had the same feeling. All of us who came from India have this burning thing in us for exactly what you're saying. And, it took me many years to understand. But now that I understand, where it's coming from, is our job now to study it correctly and make people aware of it, what it is. But we will bring it up at the appropriate time. Don't worry about it. We'll definitely bring it up.
Sometimes we must have some practical solution on this, so that Indian society may not suffer due to this.
I think the way we can start right now is we all need to understand it correctly. And then once we do ourselves understand, then we can go and tell other people, encourage them to read Bhagavad Gita and know it. And that way it can, have a snowball effect. But, suddenly we cannot go and change the whole society, but we should take responsibility ourselves right now to learn it correctly. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other thing before I go to the next one? Okay. So here is the next one. I finished 24, 25. Everybody on 25? I'm going to chant it first and then say a few points and then we'll read. 11:46. Sakta karmanya vidvansaha yatha kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvans tatha sakta chikirshu loka sangraham. Sakta is attached. Karmani is to action. Avidvansaha, the ignorant. Yatha, as. Kurvanti is act. Bharata, O Bharata, is addressing Arjun, calling him O Bharata. Kuryat, should act. Vidwan, the wise. Tatha is so. Asaktaha is unattached. Chikitshu is wishing. Loka Sangraham, the welfare of the world. Okay, so now he's talking about two different kinds of people. Ignorant man and the self-realized person. or wise person yahan bola, but that's what he's saying. So he's saying that ignorant man works without recognizing the nature of the self. So when you don't know that you are that consciousness, you work as a doer. मैं कर रहा हूँ means ego is very very strong. So basically it's like, doership and enjoyership is there. So that's called living in ignorance and doing it as a ignorant person. And the self-realized person, and we have studied in chapter 2, that if you get established at that point, sthita prajna ke lakshana, remember we did all that? That consciousness level, if you get established in that, consciousness doesn't do anything. The nature does it. So he becomes the observer. जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं ना दृष्टा और witness भाव आ जाता है कि भाई I'm just observing my body. They're observing their body doing it, and it's world is going on, खेल चल रहा है, उसमें भी participate कर लो जी, basically. And that's why Joe was saying that you don't need to change anything in the world, because we get so caught up, what Krishna Bhagavan is saying, that this is an internal journey. You change yourself, because everybody suddenly wants to go change the whole world. It doesn't work. If everybody changes inside, then the world is already changed. Like we tell to the children that, when you're saying you change yourself, you are part of the world too. So think about it. When you changing, the world is already changing. We never think of it that way. When I change internally, world is already changing. So because everybody together makes up this world. But if we say, oh no, I gotta go fix that thing, it's not gonna happen. Internal journey se shuru karo, So basically the person who self-realized knows that Atma is not a doer, not the enjoyer. And at that level, then he just in the presence of Atma, all the activities happen. Just like the best example is in the presence of sun, activities start. If it's a pitch dark, we won't be able to do anything. We need light for us to function. And anybody who has gone under the gufa and turned the light off, कौन सा दायां हाथ है बायां हाथ है, ये भी disorientation हो जाता है एकदम. Same way, Atma or the consciousness is there, and we work. So the person who is self-realized acts from that perspective. So how does an ordinary person work? Okay, Baba, these are my duties. I must do that. If I don't do it, I'll be in trouble. That perspective he works from, the duty which is not bad. एक तो होता है कि वो ड्यूटी भी नहीं करता, उसके लिए ये ड्यूटी करना बहुत अच्छी बात है. But then you have to graduate to the next level. That's what basically it is. So the wise person knows, and he recognizes the truth. So he keeps on functioning, knowing the truth, and he does it without attachment. This is the most important word over here, that does it without attachment. And then just to sakta, that's the first word, attached to the job. And we have already gone through it, but we will go through it a little bit more, just to remind ourselves, what do people get attached to? They can get attached to the action itself. They can get attached to the result of action, which is a disastrous, how we talked about, fixed result, clinging desire for a result. Sense of doership से attach हो जाते हैं. And all people, लोगों से भी attach हो जाते हैं. Places, people and all that. So, and this attached to the I, ego से attached होते हैं. So many attachments are there for the normal people. And one of the Swamis brought out this point, which was very interesting. How does people get attached to action? मुझे कुछ करना है, चाहे उसका कोई great result आता हो नहीं. Workaholic people just can't sit. Like sometime my husband told me, in the academics there are like 90 years old people, professors, won't give up their seat for the young people, because in America there's supposed some kind of law that you cannot retire a professor or something. And it's sad because some young people don't get positions, because it's like you got to look at it a holistic picture, no? That if you're not becoming productive, why not give your seat to somebody else? No, they're attached to the action so much. They can do the same kind of reading, writing, and all sitting from home, but they don't want to do it. That's what he's talking about. That getting attached to the action. Those are the people do. So, what's the difference between the self-realized and the normal person? If you just observe them without thinking much, दोनों एक जैसे दिखेंगे. वो भी काम कर रहा है, ये भी काम कर रहा है, मगर डिफरेंस है, एक बिना अटैचमेंट के कर रहा है, दूसरा अटैचमेंट के कर रहा है, एक ड्यूटी के लिए कर रहा है, दूसरा लोक संग्रह के लिए कर रहा है. That's the difference. He's doing it for the welfare. And anytime you see great saints and sages, you observe how they act. They act in the lok sangraha. So, and for integration of society, we've already gone through the whole thing. And also the point that I made, that the wise person who is self-realized will actually go and work with these people, normal people, continue to do that, to bring up the society. And one of the Swamis gave a very beautiful example that why the self-realized person has to mix with the other guys and do it, to encourage them, to make them integrated, harmonious. And the example he gave was, now a lot of you are grandmas also. When little children, they come to you and then they say, I'm going to be cooking, I'm going to be making tea for grandpa. And then they will make the tea, they will pretend everything, and they will give the cup, and then now you drink it. What does the grandpa do? Does he say, oh, this is false, I don't want to drink it? No, they drink it, and then the little girl will say, oh, it's too hot, so you even pretend to फूक मारते हो और सब करते हो. वैसे ये लोग saints and sages हैं. They will sit with you, do all the things. Why they are doing that? Because they have to encourage us. And then slowly then give the ज्ञान, and then we come out of it. I thought that's such a beautiful example. Because हम कभी भी बच्चे को discourage नहीं करते हैं. Because हमको मालूम है कि अभी वो ऐसे ही सीखते हैं वो लोग. अभी ये लोग खेल में कर रहे हैं, फिर वो real में करेंगे, फिर आगे बढ़ेंगे, like that. So that's how Krishna Bhagwan is telling Arjun that, hey, continue to do your work. Okay? So that is the next verse. Okay, who wants to read? Any volunteer? Okay. I think Smriti ji wants to read. That's great.
As the ignorant men act from attachment to action, O Bharata, so should the wise men act without attachment, wishing the welfare of the world.
So I explained this whole thing already.
It is very well known that all of us act in our own given fields of activities with all enthusiasm and deep interest, all day through, every day of the year and all through the years of our entire lifetime. An average member of society is seen to wear himself out in the strain of constant activity, irrespective of his health, careless of the severity of seasons, through joy and sorrow, may constantly strive to earn and to hoard, to gain and to enjoy.
So he's just telling in common men how their work is constantly work. We know we all work so hard in our lives, and strive to earn and hoard and gain and enjoy. Those are the motives of regular people out there in the society. Next.
Here, Krishna says that a man of realization also works in the world with as much diligence and sincerity, tireless enthusiasm, and energizing joy, burning hopes and scalding fears, as any ordinary man striving in the competitions of the marketplace. The only difference between the two is that while the ignorant acts and is motivated in his actions by his attachments and anxieties for the fruits, a man of godly intentions or complete perfection will work in the world without attachment, only for the purpose of the redemption of the world.
So we discussed the whole thing, that how the ordinary person works with attachment, other one does it for the redemption of the world.
This subtle difference between the activities of the wise and the ignorant may not strike the modern reader as very important. unless his attention is directed towards its universal application. It is the anxious desire for the fruits that dissipates and vitiates the finer and nobler energies in the worker, condemning his activity to utter failure. No doubt, even a man or God, when he acts, must bring into his field of activity his own mind and intellect.
So he's just telling you here, he's giving you a hint that if you work for the desire for the fruit, means when you are acting, if you constantly thinking about the result, it brings or dissipates the finer and noble energies. Means तुम्हारा सारा गड़बड़ हो जाता है, तुम्हारा काम अच्छा हो ही नहीं सकता फिर. That's what he's going to bring. There's a verse 30 coming, which is going to tell you about it. And then he's saying, but the man of God, means a self-realized person, he also brings his mind and intellect in there. But remember, his mind and intellect are totally integrated mind and intellect. It's a balanced mind and intellect. He's not going to get phased by, his mind is not going to be on the result. And even when we saw, when Arjun was, Krishna Bhagwan ne usko kabhi bhi promise nahi kiya ki bhai you are going to win the war. In fact, he told him, you can die while doing your duty, that's better. And he also told him, if you die, you will go to heaven, don't worry. Means heaven meaning your spiritual progress will be there. So in the world you will get the kirti, and so a man of realization is not afraid of failures, in other words. He's just doing what he has to do.
The mind can function only when it is attached to something. It cannot remain alive and yet detached from everything. Detachment of the mind mentioned here is only its detachment from the false, irresistible fascination for objects, and this is gained through the process of attaching itself to the nobler. Thus, when Lord Krishna says here that the wise man should work without attachments, he immediately indicates how this can be achieved. He advises Arjuna to act desirous of guiding the world. Lokasangra.
Okay, so now here there's a little technical thing, okay? When we say detach karo, so log thoda confused ho jate hain. Say, hey, where do I get my inspiration from then? Agar main kisi cheez mein attach hi nahi hongi, so what Swami ji is telling, you detach from the lower and attach to something higher. That's all he's saying. And here in this verse, there is one word, it's called chikirshu, wishing the welfare of the world. He also wishes, okay? हमारी wishes क्या है? हमको ये result मिल जाए, वो result मिल जाए, ये पैसा मिल जाए, वो मकान मिल जाए. He's not doing that. He's doing it for loka sangrah is his wish. So he is also has a desire, but it's a noble desire. So and when he says you don't have attachment, there are very specific things he does not want you to be attached to. And those lists I already gave you, attached to the action, attached to the people, attached to this. But as long as we have mind and body and intellect, we have to attach to something to function. That's what he's saying. It's a practical thing. So always attach to the nobler. That's the point he's bringing over here.
Attachment becomes a clog or a painful chain on us only when it is extremely egocentric. To the extent we work for larger schemes to bless a vaster section of humanity, to that extent the attachment loses its poison and comes to bless the age. Many poisons serve as medicines in their diluted form, while the same in a concentrated form can bring instantaneous death. The ego and egocentric desires bind and destroy man, but to the extent he can lift his identifications to include and accommodate in them larger sections of the living world, to that extent the attachment gathers an ethical halo, a divine glow, and becomes a cure for our subjective pains and imperfections.
This is a beautiful, beautiful paragraph. Because it's giving you very practical advice. So किसी हम लोग को बोले ना सब कुछ detachment लोग घबरा जाते हैं. Does that mean that like how do I function? So he's saying that extreme egocentric is a problem. the more the ego come, he's not saying completely eliminate bhi kar do, because it's like a practical thing that to function in this world I need that sense of I, otherwise how will I function? Okay, but he's giving you a point that, and he gave such a beautiful example of a poison. And वो इंडिया में होता था ना कि there are some, which king it was that, हाँ, होम्योपैथी में तो होता है, ट्रू, बट आई वाज थिंकिंग ऑफ आई थिंक अशोका की सीरीज में दिखाया था कि चाणक्य ने उसको हल्का हल्का पॉइजन दिया था, फॉर एंड में किसी ने वो विष कन्या को भेजा, उसको असर ही नहीं हुआ because he became immune to the poison. So, but anyway, here what you are saying in homeopathy also, that a small dose can become very good. So he's saying that तुम्हारा ego भी अगर तुम उसको dilute कर दो for a welfare, then it brings a great halo and it becomes divine. But if you just give me and mine only, complete disaster happens. That's what he's saying.
Here, the practical method suggested is that Arjuna should work unattached to his own egocentric, limited concept of himself and his relations, and he must enter the battlefield as a champion fighting for a cause, noble and righteous, against the armies that have assembled to question and challenge the deathless values of higher living, as propounded and upheld by Hindu culture.
So, here he is concluding that because Arjuna wanted to run away, and the reason he wanted to run away because he had become egocentric. Me and my family, वो भूल गया, जिस जॉब के लिए आया वही भूल गया, जैसे कि देखकर अपने grandfather और guru को देखकर he totally become deluded. So he's reminding him that, hey, get detached to those people. तो बोलते हैं ना, when you are doing a job, वहाँ पर तुम्हारा कोई रिश्तेदार नहीं है. They say no. अभी even the people who are in higher positions, who can give favoritism to their people, if they do it with detachment, then only they can pick the right candidate. It's very simple in the world also. That's what he's telling him to do. If you think it from this perspective, it looks simple. But then all of us become victim of that delusion and attachment. So he's just telling you that how to get out of it. So we will stop Bhagavad Gita here, but anybody has any point for this particular verse? Question, comment, or add a point? I don't see any hand going up. Everybody
this
okay?
Verse says that the ignorant man is full of attachment and the wise man is full of detachment. That's what, in summary, you can say.
Yeah, you can say that for sure. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this recording.